Electronic Arts has a problem. They need to market a game, but they know that people will not trust them, especially with that game. So today we get to talk about what seems like a bit of a conspiracy in plain sight, the kind of thing where we all think we know that there's something going on. And it cuts to the core question: when is a leak not a leak? When are leaks actually part of a game's marketing plan? Most of the industry will say never, that never happens. But after the last few weeks, they've got me wondering. Because 1.3 million people tried to sign up for Battlefield's new closed testing program. EA must have known that things would leak out. And if today's story was just that leaks happened, this wouldn't be a video, it wouldn't really be newsworthy. What's got people suspicious is how the developers and the publisher have reacted to the flood of leaks. It took about an hour for footage to leak from the Battlefield test, and beyond clowning in the usual of, hey, the person playing in this leaked footage isn't very good at the game, the feedback was actually real positive. And that makes me happy. Look, I've played Battlefield since it was a PC-only franchise. What we saw, basically, destruction that people remember that looks pretty sick, mechanics cherry-picked from across the series that have actually drawn quite a lot of praise. As much as there is issues with Battlefield 5, man, the gunplay and a bunch of things in its animation system, super impressive. So that looks compelling. And as contrasted, say, to Battlefield 2042, it turns out that when DICE aren't tasked to turn an extraction shooter into a Battlefield game in 12 months, maybe they can take their time and make something that people quite like the look of. That's at least what I'm gleaning from this early footage. It actually does look quite positive, but it's what happened next that's the real story of this video. So on this post, right, with hundreds of thousands of views that showed the new dragging revive mechanic, David Sirland chose to respond. And in his response, we see he talks about the mechanic actually having more fidelity that is in the footage, looks quite neat, and that he can't wait to see players actually get to grips with all the tools that are there. But here's the thing. David Sirland is the lead producer on Battlefield at DICE. So this isn't just some guy commenting on the leaks. This is a major person in that project engaging with the leaks. Remember, this is stuff that's not supposed to be in the public. Now, to be clear, Sirland did publicly say, quote, he's not okay with the leaks and they'll be, quote, dealt with accordingly. It's just that in the very next sentence, he starts talking about the nuances of the mechanics in the leaks, and he starts to talk up how cool it all is. And he's talking about that with people who are also watching that leaked footage. So we all kind of get how that looks, right? Yes, it's a leak, but it kind of has the official stamp of approval. And the gulf between the statements of, I'm not okay with the leaks, but hey, let's have a cool chat about them, that's a vast gulf, especially because that footage is still up on the internet. So often with leaks, well, companies are well within their rights to start taking that stuff down, but they have chosen not to do that. And of course, with YouTube, we know they extremely easily could. So there are videos with hundreds of thousands of views, so many more across social media. They are spreading, I'd say, decently virally within the Battlefield base. And honestly, I think that's great. I mean, seeing this much engagement and basically on good terms of Battlefield players seeing a thing and actually liking it, holy shit, we don't normally get that. But the fact that as we watch these leaks together, we also have developers actively talking about what things are different in their current development build versus the testing build that is leaked, just makes it kind of absurd, because EA could be nuking all of this. It is proprietary footage. It is shared against the terms of the non-disclosure agreement that people signed. It is showing a game so unfinished that there are indeed bright purple textures where objects have not yet been added. So it actually looks like a beta, not, a sort of marketing thing that so many companies do. Even though, wink wink nudge nudge, this is kind of them getting some really, really, really smart marketing. But here's where it's interesting. This is a pattern for Electronic Arts. You see, this has also happened with Skate, right? Loads of different times with Skate footage that leaked. Now, because these closed beta leaks don't really feel like a surprise anymore, it seems that, yes, they're part of a testing plan, but also part of their go-to-market strategy. And of course, EA are not the only ones treating them this way. So it's time to talk about Valve. Their hero shooter MOBA, Deadlock, is kind of the exact same scenario as Battlefield Labs. It's a game that was incredibly early in development. It was being played by a comparatively small number of people with a request not to talk about it, not to show footage. But if everybody involved in the scenario knows that the playtests will actually be leaked, why not just have an open discussion policy, right? There's a clear answer. Because you want the beta to be a secret club, right? One where anyone outside desperately wants to be let in. And that is smart. There's a thing in marketing that we call the curiosity gap. So when you have a curiosity gap and just enough friction to really just make that feel psychologically strong for someone, well, now you have a situation where you know there are thousands of people playing the game you're interested in. You can't get into the beta yet, but it seems that whenever things leak, they don't get taken down. And that now means that, I guess, like someone shopping in TK Maxx, TJ Maxx for the Americans, I believe, you're treasure hunting for little leaks, little things that interest you. It's pretty smart, actually. And with Deadlock, it's funny because in the month before The Verge started openly reporting on the game, that led to a whole drama, there were so many videos and screenshots and experiences being shared, and Valve did not take those leaks down. But then, after The Verge reported that the game was a secret club that you could only join with an invitation from a friend, what we saw was the player count absolutely spike and surge. And shortly after that surge, the policy change came in. People were allowed to discuss the game as much as they liked, officially. What we basically saw is an initial, deeply invested audience perfectly being used to help just explode the game's popularity. It is smart marketing. And here's how it's going to be used. Pay attention because, being real with you, I think this is going to very much be a trend in games marketing and go-to-market for the next few years. So, every time a closed playtest is launched, the countdown to leaked footage starts. It will always happen, and it's simple psychology. The idea that by denying people access, they will want it more. Right? That was always the case, but the mindset shift at publishers is how they deal with that. Valve obviously didn't care about leaks for Deadlock. Those leaks just increased hype for the game, especially amongst the power users who, well, valued the exclusivity the most. Now, EA very well may ban individual streamers or slap some people in the wrist, right, because they did break the agreement, but they're not chasing down the footage with blanket removals, and they could do that so very easily using YouTube's tools. Because unlike leaks for a single-player narrative game, or maybe footage that's for a game that's going to come out soon but looks really rough, these are games that everyone knows are quite a while off, right? And that means players will be inherently willing to give the benefit of the doubt to some of the rough edges, especially if it's, say, just a purple box that's a stand-in for an asset. That means that what people will latch onto, right, is the more interesting marketable bits, like being able to do the drag revives, like the destruction. You fill up your player's imagination with that, but in a world where they're not going to be hypercritical because they're not analyzing that game as if it's something they're expected to buy next week. That's damn strong. The hype wave is based on players, right? It's player driven. It does not have marketing polish. And that is important in the context of Battlefield. As an example, Battlefield 5 is in many ways a great game. It was a bad live service, and my god did they manage to bungle their marketing. But then we move to the next game after that, Battlefield 2042. And what it tried to present to players in its reveal trailers was basically, hey, we know you like playing Battlefield 4 with, the DLCs in Battlefield 4 that were a little bit more future-y, and so they gave us a trailer. That trailer was really saying Battlefield is back. Look at this. Wingsuits, jets, all of the things that people had not got and of course are very hungry for because we had World War I and World War II. That should have led to an unambiguous win for the team at DICE. They were basically saying, hey, this is a little bit different in the ways that you guys would like. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. They couldn't overtly say it, but their trailers were projecting that. The problem was they were big, polished marketing trailers, and when the actual game came out, it turned out it was a game that, was an extraction shooter that in 12 months was turned into a Battlefield game. And that means that even if they do a big, earnest, glitzy marketing campaign that is basically saying this is the best of Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4, with lessons from 1 and animations from 5, all of the good things, none of the bad things. Well, because they did similar with a glitzy marketing trailer for Battlefield 2042, we would not be primed to believe that. And so that's why this is very, very smart marketing. Even if it is kind of accidental, which I don't really believe it is. This is earnest in a way that a shiny trailer never can be. And because it's so player-driven, it solves a major problem in today's gaming market, right? And that is getting people to talk about your game and to even know about your game, because that is harder than it's ever been. And as much as a AAA has got the budget to push through that with raw marketing, we've seen many AAA games underperform. What you really do need is a strong, electrified base, and what EA's let happen is doing just that. If these leaks prime an audience to know that a game's coming out, then they are absolutely worth it. And that reflects a pretty brutal truth of the games industry right now. Really, almost anything that gets your game into the public consciousness is worth it. There are obviously limits to that, but think about it this way. Where do you go to learn about new video games? And I want you to drop your answer to that in the comments of this video. Now, we pulled our members' Discord to ask that question. Obviously, not a scientifically sound sample size, but it's an audience that we think are engaged, right, with the industry as a whole. So, for the most part, they learn about games from reveal trailers and announcements, video coverage, social media, or friends. Which totally makes sense. People pay to appear in Jeff Keighley's shows for a pretty solid reason. As for videos, social media, and friends, well, those are all driven by the internet zeitgeist or algorithmic filtering, right? You know, the YouTube algorithm knowing that you're interested in the comings and goings of games and showing you videos. Now, a new trailer for a Battlefield game isn't really going to fall in that category, but a news story about Battlefield, something player-driven, well, that can sort of hit the zeitgeist. That can lead to a video like this one. What's notable, right, is that our audience said that they did not learn about new games from actual advertising, paid ads, or stores. Because I guess who isn't using AdBlock in 2025? And even in Steam, players tend, at least in our surveying, to search for games that they want to buy outright. And what this does is fascinating. It dampens the impact of marketing outside of those big cultural events. So the most important thing that any developer can do is to get people talking about their game so they can know about the game. But people can't talk about a game or play a game that they don't know about. And the underlying thing is that the infrastructure that otherwise would have surfaced these games to you is gone. Discovery is Dead really is the perfect title for this segment. Basically, the entire games press has been gutted down to about 30 people writing guides on the current hotness. Seriously, like we see, tweets and stuff from people working in games press, going to an event and they're like, there's like 30 of us left, plus freelancers. What the hell? This has changed. And yeah, it has changed. How content has made has completely changed. All but the top content creators have got to stay in their niche or chase existing trends to keep the lights on. So everybody ends up following the same games that audiences already care about, which is actually a tiny proportion of the games that are coming out. And as times went on, we've got more and more statistics to back this up. As an example, there was a real spooky one about just the amount of, I think it was player concurrency, and how clustered that was in the top 5 games. It really is becoming a winner-takes-all sort of situation. And it's something we discussed recently, right? With our video on Steam's algorithmic systems. There are over 4,000 real games on that platform every year, but less than 15% of those succeed in real terms. So players are rather entrenched in the games that they already play. There's 2023 data showing that 60% of playtime went to 6-year-old and older games. That's kind of wild, and DICE are more familiar with this than most, because the Battlefield audience has been fractured and fractured over time. Especially for multiplayer games, you need to have a real mindshare to guarantee that people will check your game out. So if you can exploit early excitement, like these leaks, and let the audience do the spreading, do the marketing themselves, bam. Perfect. And ideally for them, it means that whenever the big, glitzy, polished trailer comes out, it won't be like the 2042 one where it looks cool, but we haven't really seen enough of the game to trust it. Whereas obviously, now we know how 2042's launch went. No. What this will have is tangible gameplay and community interest that will already have existed in an evergreen fashion, and then the marketing bucks will happen on top of that. Basically, they're stacking score multipliers. Obviously, don't take this as an endorsement of the next Battlefield game. You can't pre-order it. You shouldn't pre-order it. You should absolutely wait and see what the damn thing is like on launch. It could be the traditional Battlefield release. Some promising things, but a massive technical mess on launch day. All of that could be true. The point of today's video is that marketing is changing. Valve really have shown us that. We're now seeing it happen with Battlefield. I think it's fascinating, and if you want to dive deep into how Steam really works, watch this video next.